right now, wherever you are, there's a good chance you're warm. You probably don't even notice it. There's a little number on a wall somewhere in your house, and if the temperature ever drops below it, boom, a machine kicks on and fixes the problem before your body even registers a complaint. We just stroll from a heated house to a heated car to a heated building, right? The coldest part of your whole day is what, the 10 seconds it takes to jog between them? But today, in this explainer, we're going to strip away all those modern comforts. We're going to look at the terrifying reality of what this season actually used to be. So let's dive into this crazy contrast. For you and me, winter is, well, it's just an inconvenience. It's scraping a thin layer of ice off your windshield, throwing on a heavier jacket, maybe complaining that the sun goes down way too early. But for almost the entire stretch of human history, winter was absolutely not an inconvenience. It was a deadly season that actively tried to kill you. And it didn't just try once, it attacked from multiple directions all at the same time. The crushing cold, the gnawing hunger, and the endless freezing night. These were lethal threats that our ancestors had to outsmart every single year. To understand how they actually pull this off, here is our roadmap for today's explainer. We're going to break down the 4 threats they faced, walking through 1, the season that kills, 2, surviving the cold, 3, engineering the night, 4, beating the winter hunger, 5, the mind in the dark, and finally 6, how winter shaped us. All right, let's kick things off with section 1, the season that kills. Here's a wild fact about human biology that we almost always forget. We are tropical animals. Our bodies literally evolved in the warm parts of Africa. We don't have thick fur, we don't have claws to dig into the frozen earth, and we have absolutely no natural insulation worth mentioning. I mean, unless you count goosebumps, which, let's be real, aren't saving anyone. If a naked human is left unprotected in freezing conditions, you lose heat incredibly fast. In a matter of just hours, you slip right into hypothermia. Your fingers stop working, your thinking slows to an absolute crawl, and once your core temperature drops far enough, your body simply stops. On paper, we are quite literally one of the worst-equipped large animals on planet Earth for surviving a hard winter. And yet early humans didn't just hide from the cold. They walked directly into Ice Age Europe and Siberia on purpose. And that brings us right to section 2, surviving the cold. Now, your first thought for surviving the cold is probably, well, obviously they had fire. But fire has a massive flaw. It doesn't travel with you, and it only warms the side of you that's actually facing the flames. The exact second you step away to hunt or, gather more wood, the cold hits you all over again. For decades, there was this myth that early humans just draped big animal hides over their shoulders like some kind of superhero cape. But a draped hide leaves huge gaps. The wind blows in the sides, your arms freeze, and it slips right off the second you move. In a real winter, that still gets you killed. The true life-saving breakthrough wasn't just wearing skins. It was cutting those skins into pieces and sewing them into fitted clothing. We're talking fitted sleeves, closed sides, clothing that physically trapped a portable layer of warm air right against the skin. But here's the catch. To make fitted clothing, you need a highly specialized tool. Archaeologists have found these ancient bone needles dating back more than 40,000 years, and some sites are even older. These weren't just some primitive accidents. These were precise, deliberately engineered tools made by people who completely understood that their survival depended on sewing super tight seams. Engineering these garments required a really exact, painstaking process. First, you'd take a tough sliver of bone and grind it down until it was thin enough to actually pierce thick hide. Second, you'd drill a delicate eye into it. And this is tricky, a hole small enough to be precise, but surrounded by enough bone so it doesn't just snap under pressure. Finally, you'd thread it with animal sinew, which are those incredibly tough fibers that connect muscle to bone. By turning the fur inward against the skin, this airtight garment became a portable pocket of warmth. Without this meticulous engineering, there is simply zero chance a human being survives in Ice Age Siberia. No way. Let's move on to section 3, engineering the night. Okay, so you have a coat now, which is great. You can move around and hunt. But the sun eventually goes down, the wind picks up, and the temperature absolutely plummets. You need a place to survive the night. Now, we all picture cavemen sleeping in deep, dry caves, right? But the reality? Good caves were incredibly rare. Plus, everyone, including giant, terrifying predators, wanted them. You couldn't just bank on finding a cave. So what do? You build. Astonishingly, 15,000 years ago in Mezherish, Ukraine, early humans were doing exactly that. These early humans built structures in a landscape that basically had almost no wood and almost no stone. So they used the one material they had an enormous surplus of, mammoth bones. And this wasn't just, throwing a few sticks together. This was literal Ice Age architecture. They stacked and interlocked the bones of dozens of mammoths into substantial dome-shaped huts. We're talking about layering hundreds of massive jawbones like roof tiles and arching giant tusks over the entryways. These were heavy, seriously engineered dwellings designed to withstand brutal, sustained winter storms. The thing is, bones don't fit together perfectly, and every tiny gap is a doorway for freezing wind. So they created an advanced, layered defense system. On the floor, they layered grass and leaf bedding, and we actually have evidence of this practice dating back an astonishing 77,000 years. Inside, they stretched animal hides tight and pinned them over any wall openings. Outside, they'd cut blocks of heavy sod and stack them against the base. They even packed snow directly against the shelter, knowing that a thick layer of snow is actually a fantastic insulator because it traps air, and trapped air holds heat. Layer by layer, they entirely sealed out that deadly wind. Which brings us to Section 4, beating the winter hunger. Having a warm shelter creates a totally new, massive problem. To keep your fire going, you are now tied to that shelter. You can't just endlessly wander around. And in winter, the land completely stops producing food. The berries are gone, the roots are frozen solid in the ground, and the animals are super scarce. Survival suddenly becomes a strict biological math problem. You literally must store enough calories in the summer and fall to last you through the dead of winter. Ancient humans mastered this using 3 brilliant pillars of food storage. First, drying and smoking meat to pull out the moisture so it wouldn't rot. Second, using their enemy, the freezing cold, as a tool. They dig deep pits into the permafrost to naturally freeze massive amounts of meat. And third, rendering animal fat. The crucial answer to this biological math problem was tallow. Look, when you are burning an immense amount of calories just to keep your body at 98.6 degrees in freezing weather, lean meat is simply not going to cut it. Fat is the most concentrated source of energy available. So ancient humans learned to melt down animal fat into tallow, which is this highly stable, incredibly dense fuel. They would mix this fat with their dried meat to create a long-lasting, portable superfood. In a season where every single calorie was a literal fight for your life, having stored fat was the actual difference between a group that lived to see the spring and one that starved in the cold. Moving right along to Section 5, the mind in the dark. Okay, so now you're warm, you're sheltered, and you're fed, but winter attacks the mind too. The further north you travel, the shorter the days become. You are looking at 15 to 16 hours of brutal, freezing darkness, where you are confined in a small space with the exact same few people night after night after night. I mean, if you've ever been snowed in with your family for a weekend, imagine doing it for 4 months in a bone hut. That kind of endless waiting can absolutely destroy a person's sanity. But ancient humans didn't treat the long night as a prison. They reframed it. The darkness became their workshop. They spent those countless hours sitting by the fire, repairing tools, carving new spear points, sewing next year's clothing, and twisting plant fibers into cordage. They were always preparing for the moment the weather finally broke. But it wasn't just physical labor happening in there. Around that small fire, pressed together against the terrifying dark, the older members of the group passed down everything they knew to the younger ones. They told stories, the same stories over and over, effectively carrying the group's memory across generations. It's wild to think about, but a huge amount of what we recognize today as human culture, our myths, our songs, our shared communal knowledge, was literally forged in the dark. Keeping each other talking meant keeping each other sane and ultimately keeping each other human until the sun finally came back. And this brings us to our final part, Section 6, How Winter Shaped Us. All of these individual struggles build into one cohesive, absolutely profound idea. Winter didn't just get survived. Winter shaped us. Just think about the immense pressure this deadly season put on our ancestors. The constant threat of freezing pushed us to invent the bone needle and fitted clothing. The total lack of natural caves pushed us to invent actual engineered architecture. The complete loss of fresh food pushed us to master complex chemical preservation and storage. And those long, terrifying nights, they forged human culture. Nearly every piece of technology and social structure that allowed our species to spread across the entire planet was birthed from the stubborn, sheer willpower required to just not die in the snow. So, as we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with this thought. Have you ever felt that specific, ancient fear of watching the first snowfall and genuinely wondering if your family had stored enough calories to see the spring? Of course not. Today you just open a door and eat fresh fruit from the other side of the planet in the middle of December.
You don't survive winter anymore, you barely even notice it. And that is all because for 100,000 years, your ancestors froze, they starved, they huddled in the dark, and slowly, brilliantly figured out exactly how to beat the deadliest season on Earth just so you wouldn't have to. But if they engineered all this just to survive the cold, what else did the harshness of the ancient world force us to invent? Well, we'll leave that for you to discover.